was Lola.
Are you singing the Brady Bunch?
The
song?
Brady Bunch? No,
That's what it sounded like.
What? No, her name was Lola. Anyways.
Who's Lola?
Family.
Why are we talking about family? Because when you have a little sexy time, you're gonna have a family. Welcome to Stacked It.
Welcome back, I guess. That's the start of the show. It's a Stacked episode 1.
You should really know the numbers at this point.
Wait, I do. It's 120. No, not 120. 142. I think that's the episode number.
Is it?
Okay.
No.
They don't care.
I think it's 132.
They don't care.
All right. You know who does care? Milo, let me know in the comments below if I got it right. I mean, I'll know by the time this is edited. Who cares? All right. Hey, what are we doing and why am I wearing this, Tori?
Wearing what?
Well, here, I'm going to move the mic. I'll talk loudly, but...
What was this
whole
called?
thing. Oh, I should stand up?
It was a...
No, he said this. Our producer says I should stand up and talk louder. So...
It was called a alien baby...
The alien baby...
body
We're talking about
harness.
intimacy, by the way. So...
Why is that the name for the knot, and why do you need this?
Well, it's funny. It's just a karate harness. But she showed us right there where Ethan's hands are.
This
You
is
reach
where
your hand
the
in,
alien baby comes
and when you
from.
grab the rope, you go. "Rah!"
The alien baby. Or you can... I don't know. There's lots of holes.
Does
What
it
she
hold
say?
them in?
Lots of handles to use.
Lots of...
and
yes,
grab.
there's lots of handles on this thing.
One of my many
grabbing it.
skills as an intimacy coordinator,
Yes.
because we were talking about intimacy in film today.
About time. All right.
We're missing 2 friends, so I guess I'm stepping in
Well,
in
they
their
got scared.
place.
No, they actually were going to be here, but they got scared.
Yeah, they don't want to talk
they
about
don't wanna
sex.
Ew, that sounds gross, dude.
They're
So yeah,
nervous.
I was like, I'll fill in, and I've one thing I know how to and like to talk about, and that's sex and movies.
It's going to be an educational episode. I already know it.
I'm gonna put you guys in your place for sure.
Good. I'm here for it.
I'm gonna school you guys.
It's okay.
Well,
You don't have to.
just to start off, let's talk about let's talk more about this first.
About
And,
rope bondage?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Like, how did you learn this, and and why, and where, and like, I know, but let them know. You know.
Okay.
No, she's a natural.
Oh, he doesn't know.
Yeah, I was kind of born knowing how to do that.
Yeah. I was like, cat's cradle. Throw it on a man.
I guess to start from the beginning, I am self-titled a budding intimacy coordinator. I feel like I'm very early in my career. I'm also just very young, and I think to be an intimacy coordinator, it helps to be very in touch with like your own sexual history or just like your sense of sex in the world. And I think as a 24-year-old, I have a very rudimentary sense of that.
Do you think
based on media I've consumed and like relationships I've had?
is intimacy coordinating like a new thing in regards to movies?
It is. It was born in 2017, 2018 out of the Me Too movement. Although people have been doing this work for as long as movies have been around. But it was never given a title and a secure place in the industry until these past couple of years. Just in this past SAG contract that we struck for is when we first got like the language of you need to have, or you need to put, I think it was something like you need to put in a genuine effort to get an intimacy coordinator if there's any nudity or simulated sex in your film.
Right.
And that could mean a producer reaches out to one person and they say, no, I can't be there. And then that's their genuine effort. So hopefully we get better language in the future, but that's kind of where we stand as of 2024.
Progress.
It's starting something nonetheless. And, you know, I've eavesdropped on your sort of classes that you've had, you know, your Zoom classes out on the couch. And, I just want to know, like, what are the fundamentals of intimacy coordinating? You know, like what does it take to be one, and like what's the responsibilities like on set? You know,
where I stand right now, I've been taking courses and doing self-taught stuff for like, I don't know, 3-4 years. And that's with 2 different organizations. Also, a lot of organizations are very young, so they're a little touchy about like what information is shared. So I won't say what they're in, but I think that's a weird thing to be touchy about.
Right.
What was the question?
I don't know. Just like
what do we do?
What do you do?
My understanding, and again, I've worked like 4 sets. I'm very new to this, and I'm very much in the learning stages. Although I expect to be in the learning stages my whole life.
Better than me and Ethan.
But my understanding is that intimacy coordinators exist to facilitate discussions about consent, boundary setting, who's in the room, what's expected of you on set, so it's not a surprise. Unfortunately, we're also expected to be like amateur lawyers, which I think is
really
shaky ground to be on, and hopefully that changes as well. Things like nudity writers and the language that goes into that. So we're expected to meet with the director, read the script, kind of break down what we believe is the expectation for the scene. And then we present that to the actors and see how they might feel about those parameters. They could talk to a third party person, me, about like, oh, that feels awesome, but I don't really feel good about this. Because there's a very inherent power dynamic between a director and an actor, or a producer and an actor. So it helps to have a third party facilitator that, like, if I have to tell the director no, I don't really care. I'm still getting my day rate. So who cares? But an actor, like, that's their reputation. That's their ability to be in this movie that will help them continue their career.
And it's all about creating that like safer environment.
Absolutely.
On set, but also creating, I think, a healthier sort of on-picture image.
Totally. And also, we make it look better.
Yeah.
Our job is specifically simulated sex. So a lot of people have asked me, like, oh, like, does that mean you, like, work on porn? Like, do you do stuff like that? And that's, like, specifically not our job, is to make sure that it's not real. Although I learned recently that there are people that work in that role in the porn industry, which I think is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a way to make sure it looks real while very much making sure the talent knows that it's not real. And that could even apply to, like, sometimes you'll see talent where they're, like, actually in a relationship in real life. That doesn't really matter when you get in a working environment.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's not just for the actors, it's also for the crew to make sure that they're in a safe environment as well. But yeah, there's a lot of cool tips and tricks to, like, make things look super realistic without actually doing it.
Well,
I'm super interested in, like, I think my background in sound makes me very technically focused. Oh. So the technique of, like, I'm watching a scene, I'm like, how did they mask that? How did they hide? Because it looks so real, but, like, I'm sure there's, like, a tiny little barrier that they, like, so craftfully, like, put in between them to make it look real, or, like, a body movement that they changed just a little bit. Like, okay, now, like, tuck your hips in this time instead of just going backward and forward. Like, things like that to make it feel super realistic. Or I think you'll watch certain movies and it's missing, like, realism points of, like
The Room.
Sure. Or, you know, sometimes you'll watch movies and it feels like the actors are, like, thrusting in completely different directions.
Yeah.
Will, like, help be like, all right, turn your hips just a little bit, push the camera this way, and that'll help it look real. Or I call them realism points, so it'd be like the storytelling of, like, insertion during penetrative sex. I feel like that's often left out of movies, or protection in sex is, like, left out of movies, where if you include those little moments, I think the audience buys into the realness of it a lot more.
Yeah.
I just talked a lot.
No, that's great.
More knowledgeable.
And now we're smarter for it.
And now we could do it.
No, but yeah, it's like, you know, you don't really see, like, stuff about protection in, like, serious movies, I feel. It's always, like, raunchy comedies. They're like, oh, condom got a hole in it, you know, stuff like that. Like, oh, you blew up a condom like a balloon and stuff. Like, that's the only time you see protection, or, like, and I'd say the only type of protection you do see in films are condoms, where there's so much more.
Totally.
But yeah, just, like, going back to sort of, like, sort of the dynamics. I know you touched on it, like, you don't feel scared about telling a director no because you're still getting paid, but, like, are there certain protocols that you have to, like, learn and follow? Like, if you see something on set that's just like, whoa, not okay, like, what do you do then?
Yeah, it gets tricky. I'm lucky that I haven't gone through it yet, but I'm sure I will once I start working more. But it's really just our job to not even to enforce the rules that SAG sets out, but just to remind of the rules and to protect ourselves from any legal backlash. And this is where the amateur lawyer comes in.
Yeah.
Where it becomes our responsibility to memorize SAG's Blue Book, which is like, I think it's called like Intimacy in You, and it's basically all of the protections you get as a SAG actor.
You're
And
not,
also,
like,
on
watching-
non-SAG productions, we should treat it like a SAG production as far as intimacy goes.
Yeah.
You're not like watching the scene while it's being filmed and then you blow a whistle and be like,
Yeah,
cut it out,
exactly.
you know?
Like a lifeguard.
Yeah.
Stop!
That's a foul. It's like a
out!
Stop doing that.
Although, interestingly, you could teach an actor to do this in the middle of the scene if they need to time out.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
you're teaching things like hand signals or like nonverbal cues to say like, I need a break. Like stoplight, green light, things like that.
Yeah. Pineapple.
We totally fell off track. What were we talking about?
Well,
Things go
yeah,
awry on
that
set.
was on track. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the most we could do if something feels icky or goes wrong on set is kind of remind. Chelsea Pace, who's a big intimacy professional, she wrote this book, which I love. She kind of gave the guidelines of like, if people are kind of like, because no one knows all the language the way an intimacy coordinator does, of like political correctness or just being like modern with the way we talk about things. And the biggest thing that she taught was like, don't call out, call people in. So it's not really about like, you're doing it wrong. Like,
Yeah.
you're not supposed to like, when you're on sex, you're not supposed to talk like, oh, like, let's make it really raunchy and dirty sex. Like, you're not supposed to call people out on that. You're just supposed to be like, hey, I noticed you're using that language. Like, we prefer these terms, instead of like a really angry or just like
Yeah.
dictatory kind of position on set.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of knowing the pre-existing set dynamics that are already there that we're coming into, because usually we're day players
Right.
where the rest of the crew has been there for 2 weeks.
So you have to like adapt to like what the dynamic is.
Yeah, you got to be good at reading a room.
I honestly feel like in movies it's kind of rare to see like that, like you said, that insertion moment, and even like the activity of doing it, it's more so implied. So is it like, do you also work through like the implications of like intimacy in movies, because there's more than one type of intimacy, like
Right.
closeness
Mm-hmm.
between two people. So I'm just wondering about like what grounds, like what is like the least.
Like the umbrella
Yeah,
that I work
yeah.
under. I think I heard it defined as like intimacy in film is any heightened level of exposure or emotion that a character is going through. So I've even seen it, and like, it's obviously up to a production's discretion if they need it, unless it's nudity or simulated sex.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of other things. Like, I've helped out with kisses, and you technically don't need a coordinator for that, but sometimes it can be helpful, especially with young actors that are still learning their own boundaries. But I've even seen intimacy described as like a hug between a father and his son after the father comes home from a tour, like
Yeah.
at war or something, you know?
Concert.
Or a concert tour. I don't know.
When Rock Dad comes back from tour. Rock Dad.
But that's a very
Son.
heightened emotional moment, you know?
Yeah, it is.
You don't want
and-
him to get too touchy. And
Or I mean, like, that could end up
Or you
feeling very real, especially for like child actors.
Yeah.
If you expect them to do 20 takes of you crying and you haven't seen your dad in months, that's
Yeah.
exhausting.
you need to
Yeah.
sell it.
Yes, but you also need to like have someone stepping in and be like, hey, this kid's been like working for 20 takes of this, or even not a kid, like just for an adult person to
Yeah.
do 20, 30 takes of like seriously emotional scenes. You can argue that there should be a person on set to protect with that.
Does a number.
Does a
Does.
number.
Well, I know you said you had 2 questions for us.
Oh, yes.
Do you want to start off with those little questions to start to kick off this discussion?
Sure. Stole this from TIE, Theatrical Intimacy Educators, which is an organization I really love learning from. But it seems like they start a lot of their courses with these 2 questions. And the first one I'll ask is, what is your favorite intimate scene in a movie? Or a movie you recently watched, or TV you recently watched,
man.
or a book, or any piece of media? And I can start with mine while you guys get your thoughts together.
Yeah, start with yours.
My go-to answer is the opening, all that jazz sequence of Chicago.
Ooh.
Especially when we're talking about film and intimacy, I think it's like a super awesome intersection of like the film
Violence.
medium and violence.
I think it's a very violent opening, but in a good way.
Yeah, I guess you could say so.
Aesthetically violent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But like the film medium and sex and the way the cross-cutting like really helps to elevate the sex scene that we're watching.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I just think it's a lot of fun.
One that comes to recent memory for me is the in fucking Dream Scenario.
Uh-huh.
I think that's like a very like
Wait, what scene? Oh, wait.
the scene when she takes him back to the apartment to recreate the dream,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just sort of like
walking from the corner.
I just thought that was like it was sort of like a cool like because she's sort of directing that scene, you
Yeah.
know. But I also found it to be like very real in terms of like these are two people who don't know each other and they're about to do this thing and it's like super uncomfortable and awkward for them, you know. And then of course like he farts and then he comes, but I just thought the way that whole scene plays out, I was like, wow, this is like. I've never seen like I've seen awkward sex scenes in movies that are like intentionally supposed to be awkward, you know, but like I don't know, just like it felt very real. Like there was no like music that was playing or anything. It was staged very like simply,
Yeah.
you know, and like I just thought the performances were really good to like show that this is like they're sexually experimenting right now, and it's not going well, you know, which I think was really cool to see. So
Yeah.
that was one that I want to talk about. That is like of recent memory. That was pretty good.
Cool.
Brandon, you probably got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
in
he's flipping through the Rolodex right now.
Well,
Before you answer that question, Brandon, can you fix your mic? It's kind of pointed away from the mic. There you go.
I'm keeping that in. I'm keeping that sass in.
He hates your ass.
I don't need notes. Yeah, I mean, for recent, one of my recent favorite sex scenes in a movie was actually in Beau is Afraid,
Oh, that's good.
which was his first time having sex,
Yeah.
which is quite the experience. And I mean, it's comedically dark in the way it ends, but I think it's captures that awkwardness without having to play it comedically necessarily, like straightly comedically. We're not talking about like Superbad or Blockers or something like that, where it's like about this idea of
Like
what
the
sex
awkwardness is the joke.
this is your first time, you know. But my favorite, I think, is one of the ones in Y Tu Mama Tambien.
Yep.
I cannot
That's why it's in the middle.
state how great this film is at depicting once again that same feeling of like this first time as a sort of coming of age, and like, but it's not their first time really, honestly, but it's their first time like really delving into it in a way that's like mature, because in the first scene of the movie you see one of the characters doing it like his life depends on it, but as the film goes on you realize like it's not really the point, you know. It's like there's this desire behind the characters and their emotional connection to one another, not just like between the woman in this film, but between the two best friends.
Yeah.
And I think that is extremely compelling, and it results in one of the most cathartic third act, or was it the third act climaxes of the movie, between the two best friends and the woman, and I love it.
I think the intimate scenes in Y Tu Mama Tambien sort of, if you just like took those scenes out of the film and watched them, like you get to see how the relationships play out in that movie.
It's just as important as the political storytelling in the movie.
The
and the road
emotional
story.
Dynamics.
Yeah.
You are clearly conveyed throughout those sex scenes, you know?
Jealousy and of evolution of character.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
That is great.
Well, that leads great into my second question, which is, in your opinions, why do we have sex in movies?
You start, Ethan.
Sure.
Like what purposes can it, and it can be a long list of different things. What purposes does it serve to show sex in a film?
Yes, good. And also we should let's
tie
talk
this
about,
into
let's tie this
intimacy.
into the sort of big cultural discourse that's been going on.
Yucky.
On sex in movies, where people are like, there shouldn't be sex scenes in movies, you know? and
that's how they sound.
yeah, exactly like that. No more. Dirty. I would say why filmmakers have every right to include sex in their films is they're stories of the human condition and the human experience, and to ignore sex and intimacy from that is a very ignorant thing to do, because that is like it's a cornerstone of what we are, you know. We are sexual creatures. All fucking creatures are, because we want to reproduce, you know. But even that's in a baseline, but then we've sort of evolved to see it as more than that, as something that's just pleasure, you know. Bonobos have as well. The Bonobo and the Atheist. That was a shout out to the book that was on our last show.
The amount of bonobo studies I looked at in my human
Seriously,
sexuality
you can learn
classes.
a lot. That's sort of what the book I read was about, is like, why do like bonobos treat intimacy as just like a greeting, you know? Not even as a greeting. It could be a greeting. It could be something to make up a fight, you know. If like two bonobos are fighting, then they'll have sex to be like, to make sure they're all both on the same page, you know. And that sex goes like it can be between the same gender, it can be between different genders, you know. And it's just really interesting that like those creatures just do that because they know it gives them pleasure. So then when people are like, wow, you're like, no, it's like let people be happy, you know. like I don't know.
I think a lot of people think
I know you think it's a sin.
I think a lot of people think less is more in movies. So like showing is better than telling, and I think that like if you're not showing it and you're expressing that desire without having to show the sex, that's purely enough. And I don't agree with that, because there is something to be said about showing the passion between two people or three people on screen.
Yeah.
Three max.
Three max. Two.
Challengers
No group
is
sex.
it.
No Caligula.
Throuple is all I will take in movies.
But in general, I think
Or not even solo.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's solo duo maybe.
Maybe that. All right. But
What the hell does that mean?
solo's not out of the question.
Solo is Star Wars.
Brandon
Sorry,
says
go
no
on.
jerking off in movies.
I just think it's very interesting that people make that argument, because we talked about this, and I hate to get all film studies on our audience here, but
Do you?
no, I don't.
Yeah, you're gonna do it.
I'm gonna do it
so-
regardless.
You know.
I do it with pleasure. But we talked about in our classes how films are a way in showing violence and sexuality. You are inherently acting out your desires inside, no matter how distasteful they may seem. And I don't view sex as distasteful, but a lot of audiences do, and their inner desires are dark and scary, and you're afraid of being judged because it's a very vulnerable thing to come forward with. A lot of people are embarrassed by how they look underneath their clothes. So I think to show stuff in cinema, show sex scenes in cinema, show intimacy in cinema, digs at the heart of our repressive state in Western society. You know, a lot of people, yes, we do have sex in ads and stuff like that.
Right.
But I think a lot of people turn their noses up at it because they're embarrassed, because they don't like that. And obviously the sex scene discourse gets at that, but honestly, sex scenes nowadays are pretty tame. They are really tame in cinema. So if that's what they're complaining about, come on.
No, they are.
I'm
Except,
surprised you're saying that, because I feel like we've been having some really raunchy
I
movies
said we
lately.
had some, like, in the 2010s, I would say yes. But I do think there's some really good sex scenes
We're
recently.
in like kind of renaissance.
See,
of
because everybody
Sex-a-sons.
everybody was
scenes.
talking about Anyone But You, and I just feel like it communicated the passion, but the chemistry wasn't there between the actors. Whereas with Love's Lies Bleeding, I was expecting people, because people were like, oh, I don't know, online, like the discourse online was like, this movie is like intense in what it's showing, and it does, but it's only 2 sequences in the movie.
Yeah, I do agree on Love Lies Bleed. I don't think it was that intense.
Yeah.
I think it was just queer, and people aren't used to seeing
Yeah.
queer sex.
But you don't think it was like the scenes themselves were shot any different than like what we see in the past 10 years? Because I
It's more
personally
aggressive,
think,
I think.
But like,
But the content within it, I don't think
It was so tame.
yeah.
And I think that's like, as a society where we're sort of edging, you know.
I don't know. What do you mean by that?
You suck. Here's a side where we're gooning. Anyway, what were you saying?
I'm a double entendres galore
No,
today.
what are you
Yeah.
what are you filleting about over there?
You know, stuff and things.
He's playing with his socks.
You know that.
Yeah, I do.
Anyway, where were we?
I don't care.
No, as a society, I think we're like,
Edging. I'm continue.
Yeah.
Just from there.
Yeah.
Don't- let's not. Okay. Go.
you're distracting me.
Okay. What do you need me to do right now? Look at Tori. Don't look at me. There you go. Talk.
What are we edging?
I think I want to remember what I said, but I don't.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
God,
I derailed it.
this is
Yeah.
good radio.
Well, okay. I just want to say I think the scenes in Love Lies Bleeding were maybe I think you're right because it's queer and it's probably it's not male gaze shot. You know.
Because content-wise, we've seen kind of they have cunnilingus.
Yep.
And they kiss. Right. That's it.
There's and that's like fine.
so.
I think it
So like as far
expresses
as content
the
goes,
message.
we've been seeing that for years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the framing maybe is a little less masked than we're used to seeing, meaning like we see more skin or it feels a little bit more like we're seeing direct contact, even though like legally we are definitely not.
Yeah.
But it's not pushing any boundaries.
Yeah, I'd argue a Saltburn is
That is pushing boundaries.
sexual boundaries as far as
Really?
content goes.
Well, I think licking the cum out of a bathtub,
Drain.
yeah, or fucking a grave, or fingering somebody's vagina when they're on their period is
it's a lot more kinky.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's versus like just watching 2 people go at it, but with the framing of like neither body truly being in the shot. That's what I expected. I expected it to be more, not that it wasn't realistic, because I think it was.
Yeah, it was well done.
It's just from what people made it out to be, I was like, oh, this is a little less than I expected.
I think the most out there thing in that movie was like biting a toe. I thought
She
she
just
was,
did that
I thought she was
randomly.
breaking a bone. That scared me.
Wait, she bit a toe?
You don't remember?
No.
And it crunched.
Yeah.
Like a bone crunch.
It was like she was like expressing
That
her love
scared me.
through a little bite.
I thought that's where the movie was going to
Oh.
go. I thought they were going to start.
Wasn't
like,
she also
eating-
like roided up during that sequence? Could be wrong.
Is that how we say it? Roided up?
Yeah.
Yeah. When you
Okay.
take steroids, you're roided up.
You're roided.
I don't know. Is that?
I don't know.
Is that appropriate?
I don't know. Intimacy. You tell me, intimacy coordinator.
I'm speaking. I'm speaking in draft over here. I don't know.
Oh, you mean biting the toe? I thought you were still talking about Saltburn.
Oh no,
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 I
Love
remember
Lies
the toe
Bleeding.
bite in Love Lies Bleeding. Okay. Yeah.
It was crunchy,
It was crunchy.
and that's why sex shouldn't be in movies.
No, too crunchy.
Too crunchy.
Ugh. But also, Poor Things.
Ooh,
Oh.
yeah,
Over
wonderful.
there. I think that is one of the like
Beautiful work.
Shining
best movies
examples.
when it comes to like sex on film.
Mhm.
You know, because like
It's intrinsic to the meaning of the movie, which
Yeah.
is about women taking power over men and finding out who they are without the need for men, even though, that is a part of her journey as a character.
right.
Mm-hmm.
You liked that movie.
It's fine.
Oh.
Yeah.
No, I like it.
But like I don't know, I thought the sex was really cool in terms of like, yeah, she's like learning about it in the most like blunt way possible.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which I thought which makes just like spelling out all of these sort of taboos that we have just like very bluntly, I think was so refreshing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what I was when we got lost a while back.
Yeah.
The big thing I was gonna add was like, the big thing I always think is that sex is the elephant in almost every room.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very pro showing it, pro talking about it, because I think as we get visibility, it'll make it a lot easier for us to all talk about. And I think a lot of our issues surrounding like hookup culture or like even like sexual assault, things like that, it's because we're not talking about it.
I just think
Yeah.
I think European films are much better. Even some Japanese and Eastern cinema is better at showing and communicating about sexual ideas. Because even back in like the 1960s and 70s, like if you watch movies of like the French New Wave or even Italian neorealism, I think both of them communicate sexual ideas authentically, and even like the concepts that you're talking about, like sexual violence.
Mm-hmm.
It like they do it without fear and with thematic meaning. And whereas American films, I feel like, kind of rarely step foot in those topics. Western cinema is just very prudish, and I wonder why that is. Is it a cultural thing, or what?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I completely agree with you, because actually one of the films that I want to talk about was a Japanese film by Nagase Oshima, the director of Max Mon Amour, which also has some crazy intimacy scenes. A film between a woman and a chimpanzee. Well, not a real chimpanzee.
Okay.
It's a guy and a chimpanzee, but it looks very realistic. Like, it's really good makeup.
Okay.
But it's sort of like that movie's like, as I talked about last week, it's like sort of it's a dark, dry comedy addressing a social taboo like that. And that's sort of what this director does too, where in his film, In the Realm of the Senses, very like it's about sort of a Japanese nobleman, a lord, I think it's in the 1800s, and he sort of has this relationship with one of his servants that like he always wants to be dominated by her. So like the director plays with power dynamics where between like in and outside of like their sexy time in their intimate scenes, you know. And then that also just it plays again like you said culturally, because it's that they're using that sort of an allegory for sort of the Japanese nationalist movement at the time. So that sort of plays into an allegory as well. But I don't feel like that, like, I think there are a lot of movies that use like sex and intimacy to talk about our culture. I think we're seeing that a lot more with like the films that we just talked about. But yeah, like I think not since the 80s have we really had that, because I feel like in the 80s, personally, I feel like that's when I feel like sex was like the most
acceptable,
and
then Reagan happened.
And then Reagan happened. But also because Reagan happened, like I feel like they became like, ooh, like
this is cool. We're punk,
you know.
Yeah, we're different. We got to go against the establishment, man.
Right.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, like I'm trying to think of some 80s movies with.
Well, I think it shows in even the most popular 80s movies. It's not even like they have to be like hardcore like films, you know. I'm thinking like there's the John Hughes movies.
Oh,
like 16 Candles and not Breakfast Club, but 16
Fast
Candles.
Times.
Fast Times.
That's
But
I'm still that's still
yeah,
80s, you know.
yeah, those coming of age movies, they showcase like nudity and assault and unwanted pregnancies and abortions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And whereas now it's like sort of taboo to like make a movie like that. And it's like that movie, I forget what it was called. No, I don't. Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. I didn't see that movie, but
I did. Yeah, that was
but that movie like nobody talks about unless you're like in the film industry, basically. Also, it came out at a time when COVID, you know.
right.
But still,
It's a really good film, but it's also kind of a bummer. Like I remember when I saw this film, I was like, "Oh wow, I'm so glad that we're like finally getting movies that like talk about it, like the sort of the process of someone who has to go through an abortion, you know, and like the drama of like what does her family think, you know, and everything like that." Like I was like, this is great, but it's also a bummer that like we have to treat these topics in such like an intense drama.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, like when they have the sort of abortion storyline, like that, it's in an 80s teen comedy. So
And it kind of becomes a beautiful moment between
It does.
her and her brother.
yeah.
but also it's like in those movies, right? It's not necessarily expressing themes outside of itself, right? I think modern day films do a better job at thematically tying their ideas into other things when it comes to sex in film, intimacy in film. Whereas in the 80s, it's face value, and that's fine because that's what the movies are about, those coming of age movies, right?
Right.
But it's not necessarily doing more than that most of the time, unless it's like foreign.
But I think
Not-
that's fine when
Not to paint it as a binary or anything.
I think it's fine when sex in a movie is just sex. You know, when it doesn't have to mean anything because
Right.
like
That's life.
I mean that's what
Sometimes.
Fast Times is like. This is just life, you know. Like this is just like how life was for some teenagers going to high school in the 80s, you know. But I get what you mean. Where it's just like, yeah, there was. I feel like the most celebrated sex scenes recently, they do have like this thematic element behind them all.
Yeah.
That sort of makes it more satisfying to watch.
Yeah.
Critically, but like.
Sex can be fun too.
But I
Yeah.
also
Can
just want
be.
to say that like I think sex scenes should just be in movies just because if like the filmmaker thinks that we just need to have that for my story, you know, and it's just there, then that should be fine. No one should be like, wait, no, that's useless. Like,
Have you ever seen somebody walk out of a movie because of a sex scene in a movie?
yes, I have. I went and saw Deadpool. In St. George, Utah, which is pretty crazy. And I saw parents walk their kid out of the theater during the Calendar Girl sequence. Which I want to talk about that scene because I feel like personally that was one of my, which is weird because it came out 2016. I feel like that was one of my first like times experiencing sex in a theater because I was 17. No, I was 16 because it wasn't even my birthday yet because it was February.
Yeah, it's
and
Valentine's Day release.
Yeah, and I was there with my parents, and it was like, and I don't know, I thought it was cool. I thought
That's
it
the
was cool,
story.
and then I also revisited it because I was revisiting all the X-Men movies this year, and just revisiting that scene. I feel like the intimacy is very good between the two in terms of like those two characters and like the sort of dynamic that they have between each other and how they view sex. I at least think it's very healthy between that, and I don't really I don't see that a lot in a lot of superhero movies, you know. I don't know
No.
in terms of
Watchmen, maybe a little bit.
that
but
one. I don't know.
Just like
Hallelujah, and then she sits on the bun, and then she like orgasms. The thing comes out.
it's implication, man.
Yeah. There is no implication there. It is. You see that shit.
Yeah, it's exaggeration.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Anyways,
okay, kind of backpedaling.
that's my
Okay, go for it.
What I will say about this change you're noticing between like 80s and today, I felt like you were mentioning a lot of coming of age movies.
Yeah.
And what I have noticed, at least in the conversations I'm having recently, is that we're really thinking a lot of those coming of age movies like featured underage, not actors, but underage characters. And lately I think we've been rethinking what the presence of underage sex means to us and what place that has in filmmaking.
Right.
So I think that's why you only get it very rarely lately, like in a movie like Blockers, where it serves a specific narrative purpose.
Yeah.
Where, like, I think, yeah, it is totally fine to have sex scenes just because they're sexy with adult characters, but it gets a little icky and strange when you're having those scenes with underage characters just because it's hot.
Especially because
For adult audiences, usually.
yeah, because you're not going to see a lot of 17-year-olds getting to go see a movie like that.
Yeah, and I'm speaking this as I'm like putting the thoughts together, but
Yeah.
I do think it's important for like, because teenagers have sex, like that's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
It's important to see that on screen and hopefully safely done on screen.
So do you think it's
Um,
important to capture that reality for people who are that age? Or no?
I think so, and again, serving a narrative and thematic purpose,
Yeah.
not necessarily for
glorifying
the
it.
sexiness of it,
Yeah.
but for
Fetishizing it.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think a good example would be like Anything from Sex Education.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
serves a really good purpose. And it's, yeah, I think that's still important to have, but it does tread a fine line when
It is a fine line.
when it feels purposeless to see underage
Right.
characters having sex.
I think a good movie actually that sort of explores that without having to do any of that is actually Moonrise Kingdom. Between no matter how you feel about the movie, I think it portrays a really innocent sort of childlike crush between two individuals.
Yeah.
And it does so tastefully. I don't think it's doing it to like glorify it or make it seem like icky or the audience seem icky.
Right.
It's just like, of course we've all had times in our life where things like that have happened to us. You know, you've kind of run away with it.
Another scene that I thought does it pretty well. The movie hasn't come out yet. Dee Dee, when they're on the playground.
Totally.
I think that's another. Just sort of no spoilers here, but like to set the scene, he's sitting with a girl he has a crush on at the playground, and like she's playing this game where it's like she does things and like she sees how far she can go before he's uncomfortable, basically, and it's just like that could have been shot as something very comedic, you know, or very. But it was just plainly they were just sitting there, and she's like, you know, she's touching him, and she's like, "Is this comfortable?" But then he says no. You know, it doesn't lead to like this super crazy embarrassing situation. You know, it was embarrassing for him. You know,
or it doesn't become a locker room story.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's knowing when to take it seriously.
Yeah.
Similar to like the scene from 8th grade in the car.
Oh yeah, that's
like,
right.
Knowing when to set the tone, because you know who's gonna watch it.
Yeah.
I mean, both adults and like children should be able to see the scene and know the tone and the context that's going on there.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's a good point that you brought up. It was just like one and done. Like that scene, like the actions themselves didn't have any effect on the rest of the film. But you know, it does have effect on their characters' relationships.
Yeah.
But that's really, I think, as far as it should go. You know, where it's like, if we see like underage people having sex in like an 80s comedy, you know, it's like, oh, yo, Tommy just fucked this girl, dude, he's gonna get off the football team, you know, and like, but it's like, then that's the movie, you know, and like, what are we teaching kids about that stuff?
I mean,
know, where it's just like,
I think there should be that serious edge to it, but I think there is something to be said about it can be fun.
No,
totally,
definitely, it can be fun. I'm just saying, I don't think it should be like the hook.
No, yeah, you're right. Definitely.
To glorify. Okay, here's one movie that I'm curious to see what you guys think about in terms of MC. Bottoms. Because those are supposed to be high schoolers. You know, and that is very much a. I would say it's, you know, it's a sexuality driven comedy. You know, because it's about these two girls who, you know, they want to hook up with the cheerleaders. So like. How does that film? How do you, in your guys' like view? How does that like navigate underage?
I think what we're talking
intimacy
about is like the story you're telling within a scene, and the best language I could put to defining when it's maybe on the wrong side of history, the wrong side of a line, is when the story is a story of a win or a story of awesomeness.
Yeah.
I think my favorite stories when we're treading this line is like a story of exploration.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very valuable thing to put on screen.
Right.
While still considering how much you're showing of those scenes. Because we could have I'd love a raunchy sex scene, super raunchy adult sex scene, but I don't want to see I don't want to see a Poor Thing sex scene with underage characters.
Yeah.
I don't think that's right.
Right.
I think there's also something that we really haven't talked about yet in this, which is there is intimacy in movies without the need to show sex in film. We haven't really talked about any movies like that. But one that I actually have on the table is a 4-hour French epic.
Is that the 4-hour film you're going to show us? It is? Evelyn wants to show us a 4-hour film for our movie night, and we were like, what's the movie? And she wouldn't tell us. That's it? What's it called? What is it?
La Belle Narcisse.
Oh,
The Beautiful Troublemaker.
Oh, that's you.
That's me. Troublemaker, that's what they call me.
But at least you're
Title
beautiful.
of it again? La Belle
Narcisse.
Noyeuse.
No,
Noise-
Nassus.
Noiseuse.
Yeah, it's
Are
like
you correcting the guy that took French? all
yeah, I
high
am
school?
actually.
No, I'm trying to figure out this too. I've never seen this word.
It's
Noiseuse.
it's the troublemaker. That's what that means.
Okay.
So
That's what that means.
that's what it means.
Idiot.
Okay. Stupid. But basically, this film, it's not showcasing like sex. It doesn't have a single sex scene in it, but it's about this artist who finds a woman and takes her in because he's just so taken by her. And he's a man who has struggled his whole life to finish this piece because he does like nude paintings and stuff like that and drawings, but nothing. He's always wanted to finish this drawing, and this woman piques his interest, and it's not because of like her sexuality. It's because of what she is giving off, her vibe, essentially. And there is nudity in the movie, and but there's no sex. There's no like exacerbation. There's no glorification. It's all about the image and what that does to the people in the film. So, for example, the woman comes with her fiance or boyfriend, who is a fan of the artist, and that's how she meets him.
Right.
And he gets jealous because of the fact that, hey, my wife or my girlfriend is being painted every day by this artist who makes me feel really insecure about my own art. And then there's the wife who's wondering, am I good enough because he chose somebody else as a muse and not for me?
Right.
And I think those dynamics are clear, but it also communicates that intimacy really well about two partners and how it affects all four of them. And it does so without having to glorify it or show anything like we're used to seeing in like a raunchy sex comedy or something like that. And I think that's just as important and effective. And by shutting films like that out, I think that's where we sort of lose what art can be.
Right.
Is there any film like that sort of stands out to you guys?
Do you have one?
I have a bitty moment that I know is like one of Joe's favorite moments of intimacy.
What is it?
And it's the sequence in Parasite where like things are really coming together. They're like the incoming family has a flow. And I'm like the mom and the dad of the incoming family.
Yeah.
It's just a shot of the dad like smacking like the mom's ass and like grabbing it and
Yeah.
like keep moving.
Yeah.
And that 3 seconds
Yeah.
tells you everything you need to know about the relationship.
And it's not even, it doesn't have to show any
Yeah.
anything. It's just, it implies what
You see so much history.
your mom and dad do that probably.
Yeah, your mom and dad do that. Think about that.
Think about how you are here right now. Yeah.
Sorry to tell you.
Sorry, I hate to break that to you. Oh man, I can't think of any movies right now, but I have been like digging a lot into like explorations of sexuality through X-Men because I've been reading a lot of X-Men comics. No, it's fascinating, guys.
Right.
Sure, they're like the movies don't do it any justice. Where it's like
It's sanitized.
it's very sanitized, but yeah, you see the allegory of like, oh, the kids have to like come out to their parents and stuff like that.
It's more than just a race allegory.
It's more than just a race allegory. It's more than just like an LGBTQ allegory because like through this sort of this superhero soap opera, like you see a lot of like just like unspoken things between characters, specifically between Cyclops, Jean Grey, and Wolverine.
That triangle.
That relationship between those three, like it's evolved to be like you could very well argue that it's a polyamorous like relationship. And like just the way artists will like leave details like, oh, in this scene here, Cyclops is wearing the same jean short shorts as Wolverine was like 5 issues ago. Like you'll see they're wearing the like same pants, or like
They could have the same pants,
in
or-
between pages. You're like, they're showing off the rooms of like where everybody lives, and Cyclops lives right next to Jean Grey, and Jean Grey lives right next to Wolverine. And they're the only rooms that have doors in between, like, that can go in between their rooms. So we're all like, "Oh, what's going on here?" And like they've been a lot more because usually it was just like the classic like love triangle, But now writers are like evolving that relationship between those three to be like, no, it's something new.
They're
you
like,
know?
it could
that-
be this,
the
or
love
it could be
triangle
that.
is tired, and like the throuple
Mhm.
is kind of wired now. You know? It's like- and you see them like hanging out and partying. Like Wolverine has his arms like around both of them, and you're just like, oh, okay. But that's like sort of what like this series is all about. That's what the X-Men's all about. It's like these are people who are different from everyone else, finding community within each other and exploring those like it's exploration of identity, through community. And like you see that you've been seeing it in the new X-Men animated series too with Rogue, Magneto, and Gambit. You're like, that's there's some innuendos between that and everything, and it's just like, and like the use of like telekinesis or like getting in people's brains, like there's like some sexual undertones there, like in the Dark Phoenix run. Jean's like, can I always lock our consciousness together so we always know what each other's thinking? And Scott's like, yes, of course. And you're like, that is the most toxic thing ever. Like, imagine if like you and your partner like shared the same mind space all the time.
I can't.
But Cyclops was such a simp. He's like, yes, please let's always be in our brains. And of course, like that goes horribly wrong, but it's just like ideas like that and using superpowers as sort of like allegories, bringing back allegories, like also from last episode, around this sort of stuff. And that's why I've been like super obsessed with X-Men right now, because it has all these social allegories behind powers and all these insane things, but it's like I know these characters better as people than they are superheroes, which I think is awesome.
I mean that sounds like very, it's more than just intimacy, because the comics, especially Marvel Comics, is not as good at exploring sexuality, I feel like, or intimacy at all, really.
I would say outside of X-Men, you're right.
Yeah.
I never read X-Men, so now going into this, I'm like, oh, this was always here.
Well, it felt more adult.
Yeah.
Whenever you picked up an X-Men comic book, you're like,
yeah,
I don't know if I want this.
because it's like, oh, it's all about like relationships and like politics.
I'm like, I don't care. Show me.
Yeah. But now it's like, oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
It's really good now.
But I've actually been thinking about this. You bring up the idea of a throuple, but there's an upcoming movie that I really want to see.
Oh, yes. Let's talk about it.
Wait, literally.
Challengers with Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Feist.
Yeah.
And I just think hyped. It's
so hyped.
well, I think that movie will fulfill the promise of exploring I think the best thing about like movie relationships is the dynamics between people, because that can change your views on the thematics of the movie as well as your understandings of the characters. And I can't wait to see all like the little jealousies and stuff plan out, but I also really hope they convey the passion of their love on screen.
Yeah.
All three of them, which I'm excited to see if it's toxic or not, because it probably will be.
You ready for it?
Yeah.
Why are you so excited about Challenges?
Okay, I totally did not check the source. It's just a tweet I saw and I just believed it when I looked at it.
Yeah.
Which don't do.
So take this.
You're
with a grain of
falling for
salt
the
right now.
AI tweets.
So it was either from Discussing Film or Disbussing Film.
Oh.
Hey, it's a gamble. Life's a gamble.
Something. It was a real sounding account.
Okay.
But it was something along the lines of like, yeah, we see the relationship between Zendaya and the two actors, but we also see the two actors have like a kiss at least, or some sort of sexual romantic relationship, which I would love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That sounds so fun. And like, sure, maybe it will be jealousies, but maybe it'll be like compersion and like some like good poly stuff going on in there.
Like maybe that jealousy is just like something that evolves into like, or is a mask for something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I could see it.
It's like Y tu mamá también, I'd say. That very, very similar. I could see that going down a very similar path.
That'd be a fun double
And it's
feature.
done by Luca.
Yeah.
I mean, he did Bones and All, and A Bigger Splash and Call Me By Your Name, all of which do a really great job. Even if I'm not really a big fan of Call Me By Your Name, like all of them still do a really good job at exploring many facets of sexuality and intimacy between people.
Bones and all too. I feel like that's a very like
Yeah.
intimate film. You know.
I don't know if you've seen it.
I have.
You have?
Yeah. Have you seen it?
Oh my god.
I heard it was bad.
No. Well,
Why did I hear it was like?
no, I gave it like
Oh, you didn't
I
like
gave it like a 3.5.
Yeah, you didn't
or a
like it.
4.
I thought it was good.
Yeah,
I didn't
no.
love it, but I think you'd find it interesting because it
Okay.
it sort of uses cannibalism as like a way to explore.
Like eating your
Concepts of-
partner
yeah.
is kind of cool.
It's so cool.
I don't know, but it's just it's different. you
It's
know?
different.
Yeah,
It's so
kinda
unique.
like Saltburn, you know.
Saltborn.
Saltburn. Kind of like Saltburn. Sorry.
Is there any
Seriously?
movie that you think coming up is going to do a good job at exploring that other than something like Challengers? Or do you think we just don't know until it hits us in the theater? Because like I didn't know for Poor Things until like I saw the first trailer.
Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Are you joking?
We were just talking about
He's going
bonobos,
bonobo
dude.
crazy, dude.
So you just think they're gonna? But it's by Disney now.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay,
No,
I was
of course
like,
not, no.
I'm not dorky enough to do my like most hyped of the movie list
Mhm.
like you guys. So.
Yeah.
what can I say?
I honestly like
Or is
I
it-
don't know what's coming out this year other than Challenger
That's the only movie.
Um,
and
Wicked.
DD.
Wicked.
One thing I'm curious about? Question mark.
One thing I'm curious
I'm
about.
curious. Alien Romulus. The Alien series, I feel like, is a very inherently sexual series, just from the works of H.R. Giger and how they use that in the film, and just sort of what the allegory is for the first film. I'm curious to see if any of that stuff, because that's why I love the first Alien so much. You know, that it's sort of like this twisted, like psychosexual thriller in space, you know.
Maybe. I mean, the
I don't know.
the big thing is with that is you have it's the subsidiary of Disney doing it, which is 20th Century.
What?
The little man showed up and
Who?
What are
scared
you
the
talking
shit out
about?
of
What
me.
are you talking about?
He was over your shoulder,
Dude, this
Brandon.
is the second time this has happened.
Yeah, last
People are
week.
getting scared of
I
it.
don't know
Really
why.
scared me.
We're not gonna have. Oh man.
All right, but like 20th Century Studios,
I'm
right?
gonna cry.
20th Century Studios just like I don't know if well they do Searchlight do what's the movie Poor Things, didn't
Yeah.
they do that? So maybe, I mean, it's possible. I just think they're not when it comes to genre film, especially recently, like I don't think we've been seeing a lot of that. The only one that I can think of is like Blade Runner 2049
Yeah.
playing with that idea, and I guess Her, which
That's not
that's like
mainline
light
film.
sci-fi, you know. It's not like a big action blockbuster. Those aren't concerned with that anymore, which is unfortunate because it's like I feel like it does play an intrinsic part in the masculine or feminine energy, like much like it does in Love Lies Bleeding.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe not.
Yeah.
But yeah,
We'll see.
anyway,
I will say that blockbusters aren't really sexy anymore. You know what I mean?
what was the last sexy blockbuster you saw? I meant the store, by the way.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah, adult section in the back. I don't know. I've noticed that like it's just very tame.
They're casting a net to a wider audience, so they're
Yeah.
afraid to do more.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a reason for that?
No.
Okay.
No reason. Well,
Sure, I don't know. I just work here.
I just
You work here.
In
We're
this
not paying
industry.
you. What? Oh, okay. We're definitely paying her in the industry.
Yeah.
I have a finisher.
Finish it up.
Finisher. Rapid fire, intimacy and sex icks in
Icks.
movies. What icks you when they do this in a movie during sex scenes and stuff?
Damn.
Icks.
Heteronormative storylines.
That's an ick for you.
Compulsive monogamy storylines. There's a love triangle, so they're gonna be jealous. Why do they have to be jealous? Why can't they be happy
Yeah.
for each other?
It's boring.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm
When
saying.
they
It's
don't
tired.
talk to each other.
Yeah.
I
When
think
the
that's
thing
more
that
of a
would fix it
frustration.
is just like
than an
telling
ick.
someone how you feel. Ugh, shut up, grow up.
Man, if I tell her, she'll love me, but like I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
Ick.
I don't know. Maybe something irritates me about like a partner who's very controlling of the other partner.
In movies?
Yeah. Well, like in real life.
Oh, well, we're talking about in movies.
Well, but like in movies,
That don't real life.
like I mean, like physically controlling, like when, I know it's meant to showcase like a really kind of abusive component of some relationships, but just like a guy or a girl like messing with their like partner's hair gives me like somewhat of an ick.
What?
Yeah.
You don't like when they touch each other's hair?
Well, if there's a specific way, I don't want to do it because I
Go
don't.
go and do it with your
Well, come over
Do
here.
it to me?
Come over here.
But
You-
like,
if
oh,
you-
like behind the ear?
Yeah, they
You don't like tucking
like-
hair behind an ear?
No, I don't like it.
What?
It makes me uncomfortable, and I like my hair getting touched. So
Okay. That is so specific.
That is really specific.
And he hates it.
I hate it.
He hates it. Well, now, okay.
In terms of like, I kind of agree with you on like tropey things. Like, I think the tropey things in romantic comedies really irritate me.
Yeah, I
which
think I
is-
was asking the
yeah.
tropes.
Yeah.
When the people have to change themselves to reveal their true beauty, I feel
It's the worst part of Grease.
What,
When
take
they-
your hair down and
like
take your
when they
glasses
literally
off?
physically have to change. Yeah, that shit's
Oh, the makeover in a movie.
the makeover.
Although
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo
Yeah.
too.
See, some movies can
Okay,
do a
worth
taste.
Worth our time.
some movies can do a really good makeover scene. I think Pretty Woman's is actually like, because it's not like her changing, it's like her changing so that she can fit in, but she doesn't change as a person.
When a character has to change to see their value,
Yeah, I don't like that
I don't
either.
like that.
Mm.
You know.
Hey Tor, can you bring up how like in sex scenes like they'll be on top of each other with the bed sheets over them, and then when they finish, they immediately like
They laid.
yeah.
So I'm going
What's
to bring
wrong
up
with
how
that?
in sex scenes.
Just do it.
What's wrong with that?
Okay. Some coordinators do call this out, and it's like, the thing is, it kind of has to be like this if you want to mask certain parts of the body, but it is a little ridiculous and unrealistic.
Before you continue, I just want to say what Joey said because I don't think we picked that up. When characters are on top of each other and
Yes.
the sheets are over them, and then when they're done, they like flip that way. Is that what you're saying?
And they fall back in the
Oh.
bed.
They fall back.
Where like their covers are over them, and it's like, oh my god, that was amazing, or something.
But yeah, we do think it's kind of ridiculous that, okay, like, I'd say in most cases, it's not going to just stay there the whole time. And on set, if you want that, we tape it to them so that it stays in place.
Really?
Because you're doing that much movement, the sheet's
Yeah.
not going to stay on your back. And for it to land perfectly as you fall back. And who, like, in these scenes where they're having sex with the lights on, they fall back and then they're like, oh. Like you didn't just, like, see each other naked for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And then they get up and go to the bathroom, and then they get dressed right away.
Or they're, like, putting underwear on while you're still in bed. Maybe for
Well,
a
I've
new
done that.
couple.
Yeah.
But, like, maybe I'm just so deep in, like, a 6-year relationship. I'm like, why are you, like, putting your underwear on in bed? Just get up.
Now let's talk about our favorites.
What?
Are there any like favorite little details and
Favorite tropes?
favorite tropes? I like the cigarette after sex.
You would.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, you think cigarettes are cool.
Yeah.
Really cool.
You like tobacco and weed.
It's cool.
It's cool.
Smoke
it makes you better.
every day, kids. You won't die.
Who isn't like a fan of like scenes of like affirmation in
Aw.
film?
Me.
Because I love them. I think they're.
What do you mean by that?
They're just so wholesome, like unrequited or requited like monologues, soliloquies. Even though it often is backed like by like the shitty tropes in movies, like like the jealousy thing or the lying because you don't want to hurt your partner thing, and then it comes to like a
Like
I-
when they run to each other in
Ye-
the rain and
yeah.
like give a speech. and
yeah.
then
I
they
love the
kiss.
speeches. It's a guilty pleasure for me. I don't.
Alright.
I don't think what comes before is good. It just depends on the writing and if it sticks to the landing with the other thing.
You know what's one little detail that was like I loved?
What?
In the first Dune, when
Alright.
Leto Atreides, he walks behind Rebecca Ferguson,
Oh, so sorry.
and what he does to her is he literally just puts his hand on the back of her neck, and I'm like, oh, that like tells me everything I need to know about those two. Like the way he like, and he rubs his thumb. You're just like, damn. It's like just like little deep, like what you were saying for Parasite. You know, when he smashed
Yeah.
it, that explains everything. When I see that, I'm just like, okay.
I thought you were gonna bring up when he was laying like this.
When he's naked,
Yeah.
dying. Yeah.
I love that.
That shit's so funny. That's awesome.
That's like my favorite thing.
I don't know, but just like little, I think those little like, just small details of intimacy, like just small little physical acts that people will have in a movie that can just like explain everything.
Well, yeah, and no matter how big or small intimacy is on screen, I think it's important.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the point of this episode, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what did we learn?
Sex is awesome.
Sex is good. Have it as much as you want. Just do it
Safely.
safely,
and consensually.
and learn more about bonobos. They're cool. Well,
And hire an IC.
hire an IC, specifically this one right here.
And if it's not me, I have many to reference.
Not me.
Not these guys.
No.
We're not certified.
Would you want to be?
Don't get me started on the certification question. Oh my, I could talk for another 30 minutes about certification.
All right. We'll save that for the sequel episode when we talk more about intimacy and
Tori's
how
thoughts
it's
on
changed.
intimacy certification.
And maybe Joey and Chris will come on the show and not be scared.
Yeah. Scaredy cat.
They've never had sex before, so it's like a little scary of a
That's
topic
low-key
for them.
embarrassing. Oh, man. Anyways, thank you all for joining for this really fun episode of Stacked. Hope you learned a lot. Anyways, hire Tori.
Oh.